Hi everyone, and welcome to my coverage of round 8 of the World Chess Championships 2013. With only 5 games remaining at the start of this game, it was now up to Anand to try and get some more points on the board and gain his first victory against Carlsen, if possible. Because as we know, Carlsen is now 2 games ahead in the match with only 5 games remaining. So e4 is what he opened with, which was the first time he'd used this opening in the match. And perhaps a small surprise for Anand, who answered all the same with the e5, which was a surprise to the spectators. You know, in such situations, the Sicilian is definitely one to consider here. Perhaps Anand is thinking, of course, that to lose another game puts his chances almost beyond reach, so he'll play to draw with black and win with white. He has 2 turns with the white pieces left. However, it was still a shame to see him answer e4, e5, because generally this leads to, symmetrical positions. So we saw another Rue Lopez now, with knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. And now it was Anand's turn to play the Berlin with knight f6. So Carlsen castled, and after knight takes e4, he played rook e1, which is another way to win the pawn back. It's actually interesting that he didn't choose the same line that Anand has been playing, which in theory gives white some endgame chances. It appears that he has adopted a safe approach for the remaining games. This variation is very solid, albeit drawish, and you can't really hold it against Carlsen, giving his lead in the match, and the fact that it's the World Championships. So knight d6, attacking the bishop. And knight takes e5, wins the pawn back. Anand plays bishop e7. It's all book moves, and of course not knight takes b5 here. Knight takes c6, discovered check, winning the queen. Very embarrassing. So bishop e7, and this breaks the pin. So bishop f1. So we now have a very drawish position after this exchange. It's completely symmetrical. The pawn structure, the only open file is the e file, and it's completely open. And that's just, I don't know, it's an opening that I really don't like myself at all because of the symmetry. But really, it's a good choice from Carlsen, it has to be said. If Anand isn't going to take the slight risk of imbalancing the position in the opening, Carlsen can simply keep it symmetrical and have far greater drawing chances, because the onus is on Anand to try something here. So he castled, so d4, bishop f6, attacking the rook, rook e1, rook e8, threatening rook takes c1, queen takes c1, bishop takes d4. So c3, now rook takes c1, queen takes c1, and knight e8, just to free the d-pawn. So bishop f4, just standard developments. Obviously it's the best square for the bishop. d5, bishop d3, g6, just keeping the king side solid, and making sure there's no combinations or anything like that. If bishop on d3 is unopposed, black has to take a lot of care if he hasn't fianchettoed. So knight d2, and now knight g7, a fianchettoed knight, but it's only for a moment. The idea is to support bishop f5 and allow the exchange here. And already it feels that there's virtually nothing to play for here, with the pieces and pawns simply neutralizing each other. White can take the e-file though, with queen e2. And Anand plays c6, just removing this pressure. And so Carlsen plays rook e1. So he's got the e-file, but it doesn't really mean that much in this position. He doesn't have any entry points anyway, or not any decent ones. He can go to e5, and this is what white is playing for here. So Anand played bishop f5. It's just solving his slight development problem of how to develop this bishop. This is what knight g7 and bishop f5 is about. So bishop takes f5, knight takes f5. Carlsen is happy to trade. So knight f3, and along with the e-file, white's going to use the e5 square as a classic Nimzovich outpost. But there's no practical advantage here, despite this positional plus of the e-file and the e5 square. And anyway, it appears that not only white but also black has played for a draw here. So knight g7, bishop e5. Carlsen starts using the outpost, but his true idea or intention here is simply to exchange pieces and go into a drawn endgame. So knight e6, bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, now knight e5. Continued use of the e5 outpost. So rook e8 to challenge the e file. Now knight g4, attacking the queen. Queen d8 is best, and now queen e5. And this wins the f6 square, and knight f6 check is threatened, winning the exchange. But of course Anand has seen this coming, and he can play knight g7 here to parry that threat. And this also supports the rook on e8. If knight f6, queen takes f6, and rook takes e1, it's going to be a mate. So white is faced with the fact here that the knight is defending the rook, and the queen on e5 can't move to defend the rook on e1. So for a moment it appears that he's made a colossal oversight. But this is Carlsen, and he has of course foreseen this position on the board. White has the tactical combination queen takes e8 here, and knight takes e8 is the only move. If instead queen takes e8, knight f6 check is winning. King f8, knight takes h7, king g8, knight f6, king f8, knight takes e8, and obviously this is winning. So knight takes e8 is the only move, and now rook takes e8, queen takes e8, knight f6 check. And this is going into a drawn endgame. After king f8, knight takes e8, king takes e8. So there's nothing to play for here. They made some moves just to clarify that fact with f5, f4, king f2, b5, b4. And now there's no way to make progress. But there wasn't anyway if neither side played accurately. And so the draw was agreed after king f7, h3, h6, h4, h5. So it was a rather uneventful game, but definitely a psychological victory for Carlsen again, and a game that really illustrates the match situation in a very clear way. As with the early rounds, when we were seeing draws, information has been exchanged here. Carlsen has made it clear that he's of course not going to complicate the games and take risks when he doesn't need to, and that it's therefore up to Anand to try something. Anand, for his part, has perhaps, as I said, implied that it will be with the white pieces that he will try something new or offbeat or a little bit risky. The question is when to take the chance. Should he do so in game 9 and it backfires, then the match is surely lost, as he will have to win the 3 remaining games just to go to tiebreaks. However, leaving the chance to game 11 is too late. If games 9 and 10 are also drawn, then he'll only have 2 games left to gain back the 2 points that he's down. So, with this reasoning, I think the next game on Thursday will be critical. Naturally, if Anand is to have any hope, the first win must come sooner rather than later. Should game 9 be a draw, I think it's likely we'll see Anand take a chance in game 10 as well. Of course, this spices up the play immensely. Given the stakes involved, the pressure, and the fact that we're entering the final stages of the match, anything is possible. The players are going to be getting a little bit tired. Carlsen is getting very close to winning. This kind of time where your nerves and your psychology can go a bit crazy. So a decisive result in the next 2 rounds will bring huge excitement, whatever happens. Either the match will suddenly come greatly back to life if Anand wins, or it will become clear that Carlsen has become, without doubt, the new world champion. As has always been the case in this match, it's difficult not to favour Carlsen, but it's getting to the stage where Anand has to bite the bullet. Fortune favours the brave, and of course we would all rather see the current world champion go out in a hail of tactical bullets, charging at his opponent, rather than hiding away in the trenches of his position, waiting to be overtaken by enemy troops. In any case, Game 9 will be of huge interest, and I'll cover it on Thursday afternoon. Thanks.